Hey everybody, John here from the esports department going over tonight's 4-game LPL LCK slate. Some good matchups on this one, some spots that I really like, some other spots that I think are kind of easy avoids. Talking about last night, kind of an unfortunate slate last night. FPX losing game 3 was pretty crushing to my lineups. I tried to go heavier on FPX, thinking that they would probably be one of the lower owned teams. I was also pretty heavy on JDG, who I was super confident was going to win, but didn't end up scoring super well. I hedged into some Afrika, which I think was really, really good given Afrika's ownership last night. They didn't win, but that was probably my happiest play of the night as far as looking at the ownerships that I would have gotten and stuff. I think Afrika was live to win that series for sure, and their ownership did not reflect where their percentage chance to win the series was. So I felt pretty good about that slate, but I didn't do very well at all. Like I said in the Discord, I actually didn't even come close to cashing a lineup last night. So that's just how it goes, man. That's why you watch the bankroll management video. Is you just can't be too overcommitted because you're going to have plenty of days where things just do not go the way that you need them to go. Even the lineups where I had the right teams, I generally tried to get some lower ownership last night and mixed up the team slot. So I had a lot of teams, a lot of lineups that had like FPX team slot mixed with the right teams and things like that. And so that lets me down versus the people that just played the standard lineups. Um, but it was interesting. It was a good night of games. I thought they were interesting games, and we've got some other good ones coming up on this slate. So let's take a look. Invictus Gaming up against eStar. Invictus minus 375, 6-3 on the season. eStar is plus 255, 2-7 on the season. So looking at opponent record, IG's opponent's 34-40. eStar has had a slightly tougher opponent record at 36-38. Versus other winning teams, IG is actually only 2-3 on the season, but eStar is a whopping 0-6 on the season against other winning teams, or against winning teams, because they are not one themselves. So everything leaning towards IG there. Slightly tougher opponent record for eStar, but I mean that's not going to matter in this context. Looking at gold per minute, 1828 to 1739. Gold differential plus 128 to negative 79. So all leaning IG there. eStar with the first blood, first turret of 52-70, slightly better than IG. We did talk about on the Gold Card podcast last night that I like to include this stat because I think it's interesting showing who might pop out to a lead at the beginning of the game, but it's not actually super indicative of who's going to win. I do think it's a useful stat. I think it helps when you're looking at these other stats to put them in some context, but it's not a super indicative stat in and of itself. So being better at first blood, first turret doesn't necessarily mean like you're more likely to win in any particular way. Maybe just slightly, but dragon percentage 57-52, so eStar actually pretty good at playing to the dragons. Goal differential at 15 plus 509 to minus 131. So advantages in every stat pretty much going to IG other than that first blood, first turret. Pretty reasonable advantages at 1828 to 1739. IG should definitely be a big favorite like they are. They are a team that people hate targeting, but I think people will hate targeting eStar even more, given that eStar has let everybody down in their last couple series. IG has picked up a few series in a row. Could be some good leverage to be had on eStar, I think. IG probably will be highly owned on this slate, playing against eStar, who has a very high DPL at 19. IG with the 17 kill per win. So I think IG is going to have to be a target for a lot of people, so you might be able to get some leverage playing some eStar. I mean, they always have any reasonable shot of beating a team like Invictus. The second matchup of the day will probably be the more contentious as far as ownership and stuff goes. BLG at minus 115. They are 2-5 on the season. Their opponent's record is 34-25. So they've played one of the hardest schedules, maybe the hardest schedule in the entire LPL. They are, however, 0-5 against teams that have winning records. OMG is minus 120. Their opponent record is 24-34, so also not very good, or this one not very good as opposed to the very good one from BLG. And they are 0-3 against winning teams. So neither BLG or OMG has managed to beat a winning team thus far this season. Looking at the gold per minutes, 1764 for OMG to 1697. Gold differentials minus 42 for OMG to minus 156, so both teams in the negative for gold differential per minute. First blood and first turret, advantage in first blood to OMG, first turret advantage to BLG. Dragon percentage actually goes to BLG, 46-43. And differential at 15 minutes, minus 716 to plus 106. So there's an interesting take here when looking at that. They have pretty similar records, these two teams, 3-4 versus 2-5, not too far off of each other. But they both have negative goal differentials per minute. But OMG is actually positive at 15 minutes. So that tells you that when it comes to this mid-game, OMG is faltering pretty heavily in the mid-game. Now, BLG is faltering pretty much everywhere, which is why all their stats are negative. But it does tell you specifically where OMG is losing their gold, and it's not pre-15 minutes. So they're not getting snowballed in the early laning phase that often. They're losing these fights around these dragons, fights around these barons, things like that. That's what's costing them their gold leads, because they're starting with gold leads, but they're not winning the series for the most part. They also played against some pretty bad competition, so it makes some sense that they maybe haven't been so punished in the laning phase if they haven't played against a lot of the better teams in the league. As far as this matchup goes, I think BLG, since Meteor has come in, they have looked a lot better, and I think that they're extremely live to win this matchup. OMG, the money is generally going towards OMG, or the line is moving that way. They were more of an underdog, or they were an underdog earlier today, and they've become the favorite over the course of the day, or since I did the Gold Card podcast last night. I do think, in theory, OMG has more talented players, but I talked about on the Gold Card podcast, I actually feel like BLG should probably win this matchup. OMG has just not looked cohesive at all. Their bot lane, which is very important right now, SMLZ, has been absolutely terrible. And the AD carries are carrying a lot of these later game fights in the LPL. There's been a lot of Aphelios versus Ezreal, a lot of solo Aphelios performances. I'm sure if you've been watching, there's been tons of games where the game is pretty close until an Aphelios team fight just blows the door off to everything. And if you have an AD carry that's been really underperforming, like SMLZ, it's always going to put you in a bad place. Wings, unfortunately, has also not looked great. This is OMG's advantage being in the top lane with Curse, who I think is very good. BLG having the advantage in the jungle, where I think Meteor is significantly better than Hacker. I haven't been impressed with Hacker this season either. In the mid lane, slight advantage to OMG. It's a pretty close matchup. Fofo and Icon have both played very well this season. And then the bot lanes are just kind of dumpster fires, except for Zinmo. Like, I think Zinmo has been a very good support. Wings has not been good. Cold and SMLZ have not been good. So you get kind of like there's only one good player in the bot lane. Or at least, comparatively for this season, there's only one good player in the bot lane. And it's Zinmo. So I think it's a really close matchup. I think being involved in this game is probably going to be a good idea. You got a 17.1 kill per win to 16.6. So you're looking in the high 16s as an expectation for BLG. On the OMG side, it's 18 to 16.1, so you're looking at like a 17-ish expectation for OMG. Looking back at that first matchup, you're getting an 18 out of IG and just over 18, or right at 18 as well, for E-Star. So both these teams expecting 18, which is definitely going to be the highest expectation on the slate, IG and E-Star. It's going to be hard not to be involved in that game. But then this game comes pretty close, sitting right about in the 17s. And I think we're not going to see a number like that again in these other series, but let's see. Well, immediately we just lie, because GenG is going to be right about 17 as well. GenG minus 500, they are 4-2 on the season. Dynamics plus 325, and 3-3 on the season. Opponent's record, so GenG's opponent record is 23-19, so they have played a tough schedule. They are 1-2 against the other winning teams in the league, so they're 3-0 when they play teams that are not winning teams. Dynamics opponents are 16-26, so a very easy schedule there, and they are 0-2 against winning teams, which means they are 3-1 against losing teams. I don't think there's a lot of good analysis for how Dynamics could win this matchup. GenG just has them pipped at every position. They've been together longer. Their teamwork is better. All their individual players are better. I have been really impressed with Rich, and I think his ability to carry a game exists on Dynamics. I will say Dynamics, their numbers have dropped and dropped and dropped since their first series or two. These numbers have just been going down since the very beginning of the season. I would not at all be surprised to see this be a low-scoring affair. GenG's coming off a game with SKT that was extremely low-scoring, and now they're up against Dynamics, who's been one of the lowest blood teams in recent weeks. Would not be surprised to see these numbers kind of tell you an untrue story here, and have this be a very non-bloody matchup. and just a clean 2-0 win for GenG where they score like 60 fantasy points. That would kind of be my expectation from this matchup. Their dragon percentage is not 5, by the way. It's somewhere in the 50s. 68 for GenG, so it's not really like it's going to be competitive there, but just to point that out. Going to Sandbox. They are plus 155, 2-5 on the season, up against KT, who is minus 215, 3-4 on the season. Sandbox opponent record 28-19. I believe this is the toughest schedule you can have in the LCK right now. They are 1-5 against winning teams, so they've played every winning team in the LCK. And they are 2-5 overall. So they're 1-0 against losing teams and 1-5 against winning teams. They've played all the toughest teams in the league. KT's opponent's record is 24-23. They are 1-4, so they are only missing one matchup against a winning team, and they are 2-0 when playing against losing teams. It should be noted, Sandbox, since their new coach has been live and in studio, is 2-0. They did have a pretty easy set of games. They played against They played against Dynamics, who is the lowest ranked winning team in the league, because I count teams that are tied as winning teams. Dynamics is 3-3. And then they played against HLE last series and got a win against HLE. That said, their statistics have all looked better since then too, so you have to take some of their statistics with a grain of salt as well. Their last couple series have definitely looked different than what we saw previously from them. Let's look at their overall numbers. 1658 in gold per minute to 1711 for KT. Gold differential per minute minus 79 for KT, minus 185 for Sandbox, so overall both teams are losing gold. First blood, first turret. Very low first blood for Sandbox, but pretty high first turret, and vice versa for KT. Dragon control, slight edge to Sandbox, 44-39. Gold differential at 15, minus 1428 for Sandbox. So this was worse and is getting better in the last couple series. But yeah, Sandbox has been definitely kind of on dumpster fire alert for that gold differential at 15. It's tough to come back from games when you're averaging 1,500 gold behind. KT, on the other hand, is also negative at 15, but not nearly by the same amount. But neither one of these teams, it seems like, are looking to get some early action started. These are third Drake fight teams. Second or third Drake fight is where it feels like these teams will fight each other. As far as kind of playability, I think Sandbox is definitely a live underdog in this matchup. I don't think I'm going to play KT here. I think Sandbox doesn't have to score super highly to be optimal, since if they're one of the only underdogs or the only underdog on the slate that wins, they probably gave you a pretty big upgrade where you could play 4 of a team like IG with maybe even a carry captain. If you're doing that, Sandbox doesn't have to score super highly to be optimal somewhere in your lineup. Whereas KT, at a more expensive price point, is going to need to score a lot more points to be valuable, and I don't think the points are going to be there in this series on either side. So I think this is a good spot to maybe play a little Sandbox, possibly avoid KT. I don't think KT is going to be one of the higher scoring teams on this slate. Let's really quickly look at rosters, because I've been doing that the last video or two, and I think people appreciate, kind of seeing who's been playing for these teams. So for BLG, the top lane is always a problem. Kingin has played the majority of the games, but ADD was in there for a total of, 5 out of 17 games, and he's come in mid-series 4 times. Oh no, he's come in, or Kingin has come in mid-series 4 times. So the top lane for BLG is just sketchy. They just move it around way too much to make you comfortable doing it. In the jungle, I don't think there's any expectation that we might see best 16. I think you're going to see Meteor in there for sure. He's been by far the better jungler. He was great last series, and I think we'll expect to see him continue to play. And then no problems with Fofo, Wings, or Zinmo, who have all played every single game. I wouldn't expect to see anybody subbed out there. Looking at eStar, they've played the same people every game except for Game 2 of their first series, where they subbed in CJJ. Thanks for that, by the way, eStar. And I wouldn't expect to see any more changes here either. Xiaobai, Wei, Fen, Wink, and Xiaoxi seems like the team that they're going to be rolling with. Invictus, so obviously their only problem is support. They play the same 4 guys at the top positions every time. At support, they were all over the place last series. I'm going Southwind into Reheal into Baolan. Actually, that was 2 series ago. Reheal into Baolan into Southwind. Yeah. Okay. Because I knew Reheal started. Reheal definitely played 2 games in the last series. Yeah. Reheal played the 3 games in the last series. I would expect... They're starting Baolan this time. I would definitely expect this to be a position where we don't really know what's going to happen. They're clearly having a problem at support that they're trying to fix. It might be a communication issue. Baolan is probably their best option, but you never know if they're going to view it that way, and so I would not mess around with the IG support in any composition that you think needs to be safe. Anything like cash games, I wouldn't be messing around with that at all. OMG, it's been the same thing pretty much the whole year. They did have 1 game where Sora came in, but for the most part it's been the same 5. 1 game where Alias was in there at the very beginning of the season as well. But Sora coming in once and Alias coming in once. I don't think they're gonna do anything else there. I think it's just gonna be the normal standard lineup for them. Looking at LCK. GenG, only issue with GenG is support. They switch back and forth between Life and Kellen. Kellen has played the last 2 series. Kind of have to expect that it's going to be Kellen, but don't rule out the idea that Life could come into this series as well. Another thing where I wouldn't probably touch that if you're trying to play a safe lineup. I think I would stay away from the GenG support as well. KT Rolster. Oh man, where do we even begin on KT Rolster? So they'd been pretty consistent up until their last series, playing Smeb, Bono, Kuro, Aiming, and Tucson, and that had kind of been the lineup. Going into their last series, where against DRX, of all teams, they decided to bust out Smeb support with Sohwan top, and then they played Yucal in mid as well. So the only kind of consistent has been Bono. Bono's played all the games. I really do not know, don't even have a decent grasp on whether or not this was a one-off strategy, which I would actually be really impressed with if it was. They've just been training a single strategy for DRX in the background and then busted it out, and now they just go back to their normal lineup. That would be cool. I would have a lot of respect for that. I do not know if that's what's going on. Honestly, it's really hard to tell what's going to happen this series for their lineup. Are they the first game or the second game? I'm guessing they're the second game, but let me just double check. So professional to do it live on air, but something we should probably know. They are the second game. So since they're the second game, you're not going to get lineups for this. If you're going to play KT, I think, honestly, I would assume that they're going to go back to their normal starting 5. That might be a stupid assumption, but I think my first thought is that they go back to their original starting 5 and play Tucson. The mid lane, I'm honestly not sure. Yucal and Kuro. Hard to say if Yucal is actually just something they're going to bring into the main lineup now. The only people that seem particularly safe are Bono and Aiming. Everywhere else is kind of up in the air, I think. You could maybe play Smeb, given that at the worst he probably ends up being their support. Because I think if they go back to their normal starting 5, then they've got Smeb as their top laner. But this is a very tough team to try to figure out exactly what's going on with their roster. Hopefully they say something. I don't think they will. So you're kind of guessing on them. Just another reason for me to not be on KT Rolster tonight. Sandbox. Summit and On Fleek have played every game. Fate and Dove have switched back and forth, but all their success has come since Fate was in, so I'm going to assume it's Fate. Root has played every series. Gorilla lost 1 series to Cabby, but I would expect Gorilla to be in there as well. They've had all their success with the same roster in the last 2 matchups, so no reason to think that they will switch off of that one. So Dynamics obviously only has 1 set of roster, so they're going to be playing their normal guys. Looking at possible ownerships for this slate. Sorry, for some reason, whenever I get on the cast, all of a sudden I just forget everything that's happening. OMG, BLG, IG, E-Star. terrible under pressure, I guess. So, lowest owned team on the slate, I'm going to go with Dynamics. I think there is some narrative out there in the DFS community, including the one that I've said many times, that the sort of sandbox has turned it around with Yamato Cannon, so I don't think they'll be the lowest owned team on the slate. They probably do come in at second lowest, though. These two should be higher up there. I'm going to guess E-Star is in this position. Probably BLG right there. Then probably GenG. Oh, sorry, I forgot about KT. They're not going to be this high at all. They're probably actually going to be... I wouldn't be surprised to see KT that far down. And then to see IG and OMG be the top two, almost for sure. I wouldn't be surprised to see KT all the way down here. I think this is almost definitely correct. This is almost definitely correct. The only argument for me is where BLG, E-Star, and KT end up in here. It's possible KT ends up ahead of E-Star. They're probably ahead of E-Star. I don't think they'll be ahead of BLG. So I think BLG is going to be by far the most common underdog on the slate. I don't think KT will get much ownership as a favorite. They might even be lower than E-Star. But as an estimation, I'll put KT above E-Star. But I think that's a reasonable expectation. The most leverage you can get on the slate is probably, like most reasonable leverage is probably with Sandbox or E-Star. Dynamics I don't really think is necessarily reasonable on the slate. So if you want really low ownership, hit up Dynamics. I don't really give them much of a chance to win the series, and I don't even think they score that well if they do. So it's one of those terrible letdown situations where even if they win, they probably score like 75 fantasy points, and you probably just get pipped by IG, OMG, BLG type lineups. So probably not even really worth looking at as far as I'm concerned. Going to the favorites. I'm going to treat OMG as the favorite. Price-wise, they have BLG as the favorite. So I guess I should treat BLG as the favorite, since we're kind of looking at what higher-priced people. I mean, it's kind of mixed. Wings is higher than SMLZ. Cold is higher than Zinmo. Fofo is higher than Icon. It's mostly BLG that's listed as the favorite. It's only Cold being more expensive than Zinmo that goes the other way. So I will treat BLG like they are the favorite for the purpose of this. Looking at the projections, so BLG projecting the best, actually, and then IG in second place. That's kind of interesting. I would have thought that IG would have been higher than BLG. I wonder if at the other positions that will change, since the Shy has not exactly been a great scorer this year. I do think this is correct, which is kind of funny. This is just a Fantasy Labs projection that's left over, but they do have the Shy's ceiling being way above everybody else. I think that's probably true. Going into the jungle, BLG again, IG in second. Very interesting. Would not have had BLG as being a higher scorer than IG. GenG and KT on the lower end. GenG is pretty close to IG, actually, at least in the jungle. In the top lane, it's about 1.2 points. Going to the mid lane, BLG again, IG in second, GenG in third, and KT unanimously coming up last, which is kind of what I was talking about. Oh, then of course that changes because Aiming is by far their highest scorer. Aiming is close to the highest scorer on the slate. Puff projecting the highest of the 80 carries. Wings a little bit down there, which I could expect that as well. Wings not having such a fantastic season. Going to supports. I have Life. Oh, Kellen. Which support am I missing? Baolon. Is it Baolon? Nope. Oh, KT. Yeah, I don't have KT's support because they have Smeb currently as the projected player. What is Smeb? 67.8. And honestly, it's probably partially projecting him as a support at the moment. Let's treat Let's treat it like Tussin is going to play, since I think that Tussin is likely to play. Again, that's just a 1% guess. I don't honestly know at all what KT is doing with this strategy. It's very hard to tell. But assuming that Tussin is playing, IG projects the best, followed by Tussin, then Jinmo and Kellen at the bottom there. So generally speaking, it's as it normally is, the LPL at the top, the LCK below. But the LCK have closed on this. I talked about this in the Discord a little bit earlier, but in seasons past, these projections would have been like 10 points off all the time. Like 10 or 15 points, the LPL would have been ahead of the LCK at all times. And now we're seeing a lot of ones like 1.2 points difference. Aiming's even ahead at 80 carry. BDD within 3 points in the mid lane. Clid within 0.4 of Ning. So they've closed up a lot, and the LCK teams have become much more worth playing this split versus how they were in the past. But the LPL teams still generally out-projecting them, which I would say is true. Looking at the underdogs, highest projections go to Xiaobai, so E-Star if they manage to beat IG. I do think that's correct. Their projections are probably pretty huge if they manage that. Sandbox actually over-projecting OMG in the top lane, which is interesting. In the jungle, way far and away the highest scorer if they beat IG. OMG coming in next, followed by Sandbox, but it's very close there, and Dynamics way at the bottom, which is kind of what we were talking about before. In the mid lane, Fate actually with the lowest projection. Kuzan jumps up a spot there, but once again it's Fen with a monster projection if E-Star happens to win. At 80 carry, Wink by far the highest projection, as we talked about, and SMLZ with a decent edge over Diakdom, but not huge, both projecting like in the mid to high 80s. At support, once again, Xiaoxi with like a 10-point advantage. So basically it's telling you if E-Star wins, they're basically guaranteed to be optimal. OMG coming roughly in second, and then Sandbox and Dynamics kind of switching around at the bottom. If we were looking at lineups for cash games, what are our options? KT at minus 215, GenG's minus 500. We're definitely not touching BLG and OMG. So it seems like IG and GenG kind of makes the most sense. You can get 4 IG with the Shy Captain, Ruler, and Rascal. It's a 571.6. So let's see. IG GenG 571.6. The only other real option on the slate is to play one of those teams with KT. And you can actually get an 80 carry captain if you play IG KT. Can you do it in a way, let's see, it gives you 588. Can you do it in a way where it's not even remotely scary though? What about something like Rookie? Could you get Rookie Captain with UCal? No, UCal already is scary. Could you get Ning? In theory, you should definitely be able to do this. Or what about, could you get Aiming Captain with Puff, the Shy, Bono, Rookie, and then of course you have a support problem no matter who you play. You'd have to play a third KT person, and you can't really, so there's really no safe way to play KT anyway. So it really just kind of forces you to choose between IG GenG, which gives you the 571.6, or trying to fit one of these OMG BLG teams in there. The favorite and the way the line is moving is OMG, so just for argument's sake, let's put IG OMG in there. You can get a Puff Captain 3-3, which obviously makes a lot of sense. What if you switch Puff out of Captain and put SMLZ in Captain because he's cheaper? That would open up $800. Is that enough to get you a 4th IG player in here somewhere? It is. So you could play an 80 carry captain 4 IG with OMG lineup. You just have to make SMLZ your 80 carry captain. And that actually just seems significantly better to me. Getting the 4 IG, if you're trying to play this in cash, I think getting the 4 IG makes too much sense. So even if you're risking it on OMG, I would still make a lineup like this where IG is going to be your primary focus. You could also, in theory, I think Icon and Rookie both outscore in general. So you could play Icon Captain with Rookie. Are any of these other positions somewhere where we could play? You don't really want to play Baolon. So you could play Cold there, Ning. So yeah, you could play Icon Captain with 4 IG, no risk, with Cold as your support and OMG team. That makes a lot of sense to me. If you want to play OMG in your cash lineup, don't get me wrong. I don't necessarily think that OMG is a cash lineup kind of team. But if you wanted to, you can do that. If you wanted to play BLG, you can get an 80 carry captain. This is another situation where I think I might be likely to lean towards maybe playing a mid captain. So what happens if we were to play rookie captain with Fofo? That would fill everything up exactly. What if we switched Fofo to the captain spot, put rookie down here? That would leave us $100, which is not going to be enough to upgrade Kingin or Meteor for sure. So you'd probably have to drop down to a jungle captain if you want to play 4 IG with BLG. OMG is just going to be really, really popular. Where did I have them? Yeah, second. Yeah, I think that's going to be correct. IG OMG is just going to be a absolute out of the park knockout as far as people are like making their lineups for tonight. GenG will get ownership because teams that are huge favorites like that always get big ownership no matter how bloody their matchup looks. But I would expect to see a lot of OMG IG, a lot of GenG OMG. But for cash, I think I would just go with an IG GenG. People are going to play OMG in cash. I don't think they're safe enough for that. So it's kind of up to how you feel about that. But that's all for me on this slate, guys. I will probably come back later today with my LCS slate for tomorrow. So I'll let you guys know on that front. Until then, I'll talk to you later. Good luck tonight.